Alrighty, folks. Today we are looking at 4 things we want to see in the future in updates on Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 has been a massive success, ridiculous concurrent player numbers on Steam, and probably at least 40% of the community is on PlayStation as well, so this game's really taking off, really taking the gaming industry by surprise with the successful and well-received live service model versus the generally looked down upon live service model of battle passes and whatnot. This game has just been a huge success, and we know that they're projecting it to continue into the future quite a ways, and they've hired more staff and they've got a lot of team around future updates now that the whole server stability is fixed. So we're going to jump in here with the most likely first of these 4 things that I want to see come in the future updates. Starting off, we've already seen the leaks for it, we've seen some pictures popping up and some gameplay coming up, but it is vehicles, and also mechs, but mainly vehicles. Now, vehicles would be a massive addition to this game. It's kind of interesting having no vehicles, but we see the opponents use vehicles, we see the robots use vehicles, and stuff like that, so we know it's potentially possible, but the size of the maps and the amount of movement that you have to do around the map really lends itself to having vehicles in this game. I mean, how much of the time are you spending just running from point to point? And the whole map balance, they've done a good job of it for sure, the whole map balance of how frequent locations are and the distance that you have to run, but going with vehicles, adding vehicles in some way, will give you more potential to go with larger maps, go with bigger objectives, or more distance between 2 objectives, and have more confidence that you can get it done, which is really helpful on the higher difficulties because, geez, it just gets so hard when you start taking the difficulty up. So, facilitating bigger maps would be great. The only downside that I really see to vehicles is they're going to be difficult to balance. You know, if they're adding just transportation vehicles, like 4-wheelers and stuff, it wouldn't be too bad. But if they're adding combat vehicles, which is what it looks like, potentially big troop carriers or vehicles with mounted weapons and stuff like that, it's going to really become a how can you balance this issue because of the PvE aspect. You don't want it to make it to where you have to be in a vehicle to be viable, because that's not how the game is now, and everybody's having fun now. So you don't want to shift the meta and the high end to just be only vehicles, and at the same time you can't make vehicles so weak that nobody uses them. So it's definitely going to be a delicate balance, but if they can get it right, I think vehicles and mech suits and stuff like that could be the biggest addition to this game. I'm not expecting any air vehicles or anything like that, or any water travel, just some basic transportation maybe at first, and then we'll see how they want to balance it, because they're doing a lot of balancing changes right now anyway. So that's our most likely. These other 3, I don't think we've got too many leaks of yet, or I haven't seen anything of yet, so we'll see. So another thing that I definitely want to see in the future updates, and I think this one's also pretty likely too, is additional factions. Now we know Helldivers 1 had a 3rd faction. I don't know if they were some sort of hybrid of machine and alien or something like that, but I'm thinking at least 1 additional faction. When you look at the map of the game world, you can see that right now we just got the automatrons on one side and the terminids on the other. We could easily have a 3rd one in here somewhere, similar to a like PlanetSide type thing. It makes me think of where you're fighting for that middle spot. All the 3 factions are fighting for that middle spot. And I think we could definitely see something like that go on. Even a 4th faction maybe wouldn't be too bad. There's plenty of ideas they can come up with, certainly, for a faction. Of course, bringing back the Helldivers 1 one would be the most straightforward. They could also do some sort of other alien faction. So they could do some sort of Super Earth Deserters faction, you know, or Psychos type faction from a Borderlands thing, or like a Mad Max, like deserters that left Super Earth or that were Helldivers and decided not to come back, you know, stayed on the planets or whatever. Something like that, just throwing ideas out. Another faction would be great, and I think along with that, I'd like to see potentially the factions affect each other. Going back to the PlanetSide thing, the Terminids and the Automatrons are on the opposite sides of us, so and none of their area overlaps. But you get a third one in here, you could potentially see spots where they meet, you know, where there's overlap in the places they're attacking. Maybe some factions are friendly with other factions and some factions aggro onto other factions. So some sort of intermingling, possibly some sort of, you know, events where there's two different factions on one planet, and you're going in, you got an objective to take out at both, something like that. I think it just opens up a lot of storytelling potential, and the way that they're going with this whole dungeon master, game master type thing, that just gives them way more options to work with. So I think that that's kind of a logical progression, that they're going to go to more factions. I just specifically would like to see the factions interact with each other in some way to give the world some more believability, some more dungeon master type stuff. But that one's also, I think, quite likely, similar to the vehicles. The next thing that I think is probably going to happen eventually, but I think it's not high up on the priority list right now, but that I would really like to see is map enhancements and planet developments to be more unique. Now what I'm thinking about in this is there's all the locations scattered around, and there's all the setups for the exfils and the objective sites. I'd like to see those more diversified, more like different layouts, different verticality in different locations, new locations, locations that potentially offer you more than just a couple ammo pieces. Now I like the double doors, the 2-button doors. I like the blowing up the storage crates to get the loot out of them. I think that's all great. Just some more of those, even if they're just that, just some more different types of those, some more crashed ships, some more, you know, fallen Helldiver or something. Those are great, but I'm also thinking specifically about how much fun the cannon that you load is, and the satellite dish that you repair, and these objectives that are not necessarily marked and incentivize exploration, but that give you a benefit, you know, give you a benefit throughout the rest of the mission. I think they could definitely do more of those. I think they probably will, like I said, but it might be a while before that's really what they're trying to get to. They're trying to do some other stuff first. But some ideas, I would really like to see, you know, like I said, ones that benefit you. So maybe some sort of a station that will give you shorter cooldowns on all your stratagems for the rest of the game if you complete it, and if you log some sort of uplink or something that gives you faster stratagem cooldowns. Or maybe you can get some sort of a escape pod or a send up pod where you can put your samples in. So you unlock some sort of station, complete the little terminal, and then your whole team can bank their samples into it and send it up. And then even if you don't extract or whatever, you don't have to worry about carrying those samples around. You know, I think that's not a terribly complicated one to put through. You know, they could do all sorts of stuff with this. You know, I'm sure they have a team that's brainstorming like crazy. But, you know, we could come up with ideas all day. I mean, one that would negatively, some sort of station that would negatively impact you would potentially be cool. If you messed it up, or if there was some sort of consequence and like reduced your max health or lengthened stratagem cooldowns or something like that. Or one that even, especially against like the automatrons, you could have one that, you know, jams them up in some way, some sort of EMP that negatively impacts the opponents that you're fighting against. Stuff like that. Definitely would like to see locations that are planet specific or like system specific, and opponent specific too. Like I said, the automatrons, you would want some different stations and stuff like that. But just, you know, all sorts of new locations. The more types, the more variety of locations they have, the better it's going to feel to not run into the same ones over and over and be more incentivized to explore. And, you know, what if we can go around this hill and unlock some quicker cooldowns or something for the rest of this match? That's, you know, a balancing deal, but they can get it balanced, they can do it. I think that would be a huge improvement. Just more playability, more exploration. And the last thing that I'd really like to see in a future update here, which kind of connects to some of these other ones, and is why we saved it for last, is more than 4-player lobbies. Now, this could go a lot of ways. I'm thinking maybe special event lobbies that are 8 to 16 players max or something. Maybe you're in different 4-person teams, but you can both drop onto the same planet. I think the best way to facilitate this is going to be bigger planets, of course, which would go along with the vehicles. But if you got bigger planets with maybe objectives that are on far ends or far corners that seem too far apart to really get done with one team, it could be a larger objective, or drop 3 teams of 4 in. Each one's kind of responsible for their own objective. Their game chats are separate, and they don't really know, they don't have communication, and they don't know what those other teams are getting done. And they just see, hey, we got our objective done, maybe one of the other teams didn't get theirs done, maybe they all didn't make it, and we got to go get their objective done too. We got to get all the way across the map and try to get theirs done, and stuff like that. And I think up in those player counts, it could just be for special events. It could be what I was originally thinking for, which would be boss fights. Maybe, I don't know, probably not many people have played this game, but Defiance, I believe it was, it came out on consoles, and it was the first game that had these massive multiplayer events on consoles. And like, there would be hundreds of people stacked around a boss trying to fight it, which was just not seen, especially in like a third-person shooter environment on console. It's just wild. That game was a massive flop. It completely failed. But I think at one point it was free to play, and since then the servers are shut down. But we'll find some pictures of it still to show you guys what it was like. But think a massive boss fight, maybe 4 teams are dropped in. They've got some sort of gate or some sort of button they've each got to press around the 3 different sides of the map. 3 objectives to get done, and then it opens up some boss fight in the middle of the map. And then all the teams are trying to converge on this massive boss. I think that's a natural progression for this game, to go to more epic and epic events and set pieces, Dungeon Master style, like we said before. And I think that opening it up to like a 4 to 16 player, or like a 8 to 12 player like event, maybe would be really cool, once you have the balancing in place. Obviously they've got to get the difficulties balanced as they are first and stuff like that, but once they've got everything set, the servers are stable now, I think they're probably looking at potentially more than 4 player lobbies. Now I don't know what the coding looks like in this game, of course. They say it's an old system, an old engine that's not even supported anymore, so I don't know if the limits are there and the capabilities are there, but we'll see what they want to do with that. I'm sure they'll probably push that direction eventually. Alrighty, folks. So that's the 4 things we would like to see in some future updates. I think this game's going to be supported for a while. The way that this dev team is pushing the whole Game Master thing, and the world and the storytelling stuff that they're pushing, I think we're going to see a lot of these things in game. I know vehicles and mechs, we're pretty much already certain are coming soon. Probably the next thing to be added based on the leaks. And I think an additional faction is also quite likely. It's just a matter of time before they want to drop that set piece on us, really. Future map enhancements and new locations similar to the satellite or the artillery, I think that's something that they want. It's just a matter of how much they want to dedicate to developing that right now versus other things. They've got a lot of balancing to do, especially if they're planning on bringing in vehicles. They're going to have to play test and balance those some way before they come out. And then finally, I think more than 4 player lobbies. I think it's coming. I think it may be a ways out. It may be they want to just drop 3 or 2 or 4 maybe even teams in, or a lot of groups in that are already together on a ship to do some stuff like that. I think boss fights, there's only so much you can go to with the 4-man team. There's only so big of a boss or big of a set piece event that you can go to with the 4-man team, unless they come up with some really crazy vehicle system. So I think going to bigger lobbies is kind of a natural progression. Just depends on how long it takes them to do that and what the restrictions are on the system. The system may not be able to do it, so they're working on a lot. The devs have been great communicating with us. The whole Game Master thing and the storytelling that they're doing is great. So if you've got any updates that you'd like to see in the future, let me know in the comments. We'll talk about them. So I hope this video gave you some ideas to get the community thinking about stuff we want to see in the future, so that we can let them know, because this is a dev team that's actually listening, which is awesome. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're having some fun in Helldivers 2.